Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public comment meeting for the proposed Townsite Solar 2 project. Tonight's public comment meeting will include an introduction by the Las Vegas field manager, Bruce Silito, followed by introductions of the participants from the BLM Southern Nevada District and SWCA Environmental Consultants, our third-party contractor, who is facilitating tonight's session. After introductions, Jessica Hedden, the BLM project manager, will present on the proposed Townsite 2 solar project and provide a short overview of the BLM project review process, as well as a summary of the environmental analysis of the proposed project. Following the presentations, there will be a question and answer session facilitated by SWCA with responses from the BLM. And then we will open up the meeting for public comment. After public comment, we will close out the meeting this evening. The meeting will be recorded and the video will be posted to the project information webpage shown at the bottom of the slide. We will also provide this address in the chat. Now we will turn it over to Bruce Silito, the Las Vegas field manager, for a short introduction and overview of our presenters and other participants for this evening's public comment meeting.
Thank you, Donna, and welcome everyone. First, I want to recognize all the work that's gone into preparing for this meeting tonight, and I look forward to a robust question and answer session following the presentation. Tonight's webinar will have participants from the Bureau of Land Management and SWCA Environmental Consultants. Jessica Hedden, the BLM's project manager, she will be presenting the proposed Townsite Solar 2 project and will provide a summary of the environmental analysis. Following Jessica, Donna Mori of SWC Environmental Consultants will continue facilitating the remainder of the session. We're fortunate to have several BLM specialists who will assist with answering questions. So please take good notes during Jessica's presentation. Back to you, Donna.
Thank you, Bruce. Tonight's meeting will provide opportunities for questions and public comment. There will be a question and answer session where written questions can be submitted. There will also be an opportunity for verbal public comment towards the end of the meeting. We will have more information on these two opportunities later on. The BLM is also providing opportunity after the meeting for public comment and questions until August 18th, 2023. Comments and questions can be submitted via email to the email address on screen or via mail to the BLM Southern Nevada District Office. We will also provide this information in the chat. Now Jessica will present an overview on the Townsite Solar 2 project, as well as the environmental analysis.
Thank you, Donna. Good evening, everyone. Skylar Energy Resources, LLC has submitted a right-of-way application for the Townsite Solar 2 project to utilize public land in Clark County for the construction, operation, and eventual decommissioning of a proposed solar facility and interconnection to the regional transmission system. The Townsite Solar 2 project request includes approximately 85 acres of BLM administered lands, 4 miles southwest of Boulder City, Nevada, and 2 miles south of Railroad Pass on the west side of US Highway 95. The project proposal is a 19 megawatt solar photovoltaic power generating facility and may include battery storage. Please note, the Townsite Solar 2 project is less than 20 megawatts and not automatically subject to the 2012 Western Solar Plan, which applies to projects larger than 20 megawatts. On the screen, you'll see a map of the location of the proposed project. that the BLM is currently processing. The Townsite Solar 2 project, highlighted on the map in black, is a project we are discussing tonight. The flowchart display outlines the review process for the Townsite Solar 2 project. The solar project application evaluation was completed and approved to proceed to the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA review. Today initiates the public review and comment period for the Townsite Solar 2 project, environmental assessment, and draft finding of no significant impact. Both documents are available for public review and comment on the project information webpage at the address provided in the chat. The BLM completed the application evaluation process for the Townsite Solar 2 project in 2022. The process included a public input meeting and comment period, an agency input meeting and comment period, and consultation with tribes. All input received during the application evaluation process for the project was carried forward and utilized in the development of the environmental assessment. Cooperating agencies for the Townsite Solar 2 project include the Clark County Department of Aviation, the Clark County Department of Environment and Sustainability, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service Ecological Services, and the United States Fish and Wildlife Service Migratory Bird Program. 13 Indian tribes were initially notified, and formal government-to-government consultation was requested in the early stages of the project planning by letter in May of 2022. Additional letters were sent out in September 2022 to formally notify and invite the Big Pine Paiute tribe of Owens Valley and the Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone tribe to consult on the project. Government-to-government consultation for the proposed project is ongoing. After the public comment period, the BLM will review and address comments received. The BLM will then make a decision on the rights-of-way applications associated with the Townsite Solar 2 project to approve the project and grant associated rights-of-ways as requested, approve the project and grant associated rights-of-way with modifications, or deny the right-of-way applications for the project. A decision is expected to be made in September of 2023. As previously mentioned, the proposed actions consist of 85-acre solar facility with a 5-acre temporary laydown area that may include on-site battery storage. Construction is anticipated to take up to 12 months and utilize traditional construction methods. The project is expected to produce up to 19 megawatts of electricity. Here is a table of the project components. More information can be found in the environmental assessment. This map shows the location of the proposed project elements. The yellow shaded area in the proposed, the yellow shaded area is the proposed solar array area. The orange shaded box is the 5-acre temporary laydown area. And the black shaded box is the site for the possible battery storage in the event the project does not interconnect to the existing Townsite Solar 1 facility to the south of the project. Now we will review the environmental effects for the Townsite Solar 2 project. Surveys and technical studies completed to date include the Class 3 Cultural Resource Inventory Survey, the Desert Tortoise Survey, the Botanical Resource Surveys, and the Visual Resources Assessments. Final copies of these reports can be found on the project information webpage. We'll also post that information in the chat. Next, we will provide a brief overview of key resource-specific effects, including air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, threatened and endangered species, including desert tortoise, wildlife, including migratory bird and special status species, cultural resources, visual resources, soils, hydrology, and vegetation. Again, additional information and further resource analysis can be found in the EA on the project information webpage provided in the chat. Environmental effects related to air quality, greenhouse gas, climate change. A few of the short and long-term air quality impacts from surface disturbance of the 85 acres, including fugitive dust, possible airborne valley fever fungal spores, and ozone pollution. Short and long-term and indirect emissions from equipment vehicles is expected during all phases. Short-term impacts to greenhouse gas emissions for vehicle and equipment, an increase in greenhouse gas concentrations from surfaces disturbance. Environmental effects related to threatened and endangered species, including the Mojave Desert tortoise. Short and long-term impacts, again, the 85-acre desert tortoise habitat would be impacted. There'd be likely no impact to desert tortoise connectivity. The monarch butterfly, there could be some short and long-term impacts to the nectar-producing plants for food and overnight habitat. Wildlife, including migratory birds and special status species. Again, short and long-term adverse impacts include the 85 acres of habitat removal, impacts due to injury and mortality from collision, electrocution, and/or lake effect, and indirect adverse impacts from fugitive dust and light pollution. Special status and general wildlife impacts are similar, no decline in species across range. For cultural resources, no short or long-term adverse impacts to cultural resources are expected. And the same is for the visual effects on cultural resources for atmospheric, auditory, and vibrational. Short-term and long-term visual impacts, including visual disturbances viewing from vehicles, weak visual impacts to recreational users, and visual character impacts, adverse impacts. Soils and hydrology, short-term and long-term adverse impacts to the soil from all phases. Long-term adverse soil impacts to the temporary laydown area, and short and long-term alternating and surface runoff patterns. Short and long-term increase of susceptibility to wind and water erosion. And finally, for vegetation, short and long-term impacts, of course, to the removal of and grading and clearing of the plants. Long-term adverse impacts to native plant cover. Long-term and permanent removal of up to 27 acres of potential habitat for special status plants. Direct removal of up to over 200 catclaw plants, and the direct removal of up to and over 3,000 cacti. Some of the design features included in the proposed action include county and city permits, reclamation of temporary laydown area, site litter control program, on-site biological monitoring, and restricted public access, to name a few. A full list of project design features is included in the environmental assessment. Along with the project design features, the listed plans would be required for the project. Plans expected to be developed include the project's specific biological opinion, which is completed and available on the project webpage, the site drainage plan, the site rehabilitation plan, and the project-specific decommissioning and site reclamation plan, again, just to name a few. Finally, we will review the cumulative impacts associated with the proposed action. For air quality, short-term cumulative effects on air quality, beneficial effects from reduction in emissions when compared with other types of energy generating facilities. For greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, it's unlikely to influence global cumulative emissions. There's no known cumulative effects on cultural resources. And for visual resources, the project would add cumulative to visual impacts, increasing visibility and scale of surrounding solar developments, and increased degree of impacts by casual observers. For wildlife, including migratory birds and special status species, incremental cumulative adverse effects on general wildlife, special status species, and nesting raptors habitat in the vicinity, and small-scale cumulative effects on individual golden eagle foraging habitats. For threatened and endangered species, the Mojave Desert tortoise, due to the project's proximity to existing disturbance development in the US 95, very little desert tortoise habitat remains within and outside the project area. However, there will be the long-term permanent removal of the 85-acre habitat. Incremental impacts are expected for soils and hydrological conditions, and for vegetation, minor cumulative adverse impacts to the vegetation and cacti. The public review and comment on the environmental assessment and draft finding of no significant impact for the Townsite Solar 2 project will be accepted until August 18, 2023. The comments gathered during the meeting and the comment period will be reviewed and as appropriate addressed by the BLM. The environmental assessment will be reviewed by the BLM authorized officer, and if no significant impacts, approves a finding of no significant impact and decision of record. The determination on the project is anticipated in September of 2023. For more information on the project, please visit the project webpage shown on the screen. We'll also provide the address in the chat. Helpful comments would include any information that would enhance the analysis and environmental review of the proposed project, as well as comments on the draft finding of no significant impact. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Donna, who will begin the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Jessica. That concludes the presentation. And now we will have a question and answer section on the Townsite Solar 2 project. Questions can be submitted utilizing the Q&A box by following the instructions on this slide. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature to submit questions. Please understand that some questions will be answered live during this question and answer session, while some may be answered in writing within the Q&A feature. As questions begin to come in, I will facilitate asking the questions as the project manager, Jessica Hedden, will answer them. Questions can be submitted utilizing the Q&A box by following the instructions on the slide. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature to submit questions. The BLM is hoping to hear from you and other members of the public. If you would like to submit questions, please use the Q&A box by following the instructions on the slide. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A feature to submit questions. We will give this question and answer session a few more minutes for you to have time to type your questions into the Q&A box. If you're not sure of what your question is yet, those can always be submitted later on in today's webinar or to the BLM. Thank you, everyone. We'll conclude the question and answer session, but please know that you can add additional questions into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen throughout this entire webinar this evening till 8 p.m. We will now transition onto the verbal input section. Verbal input will be accepted in the order of registration. If you identified that you wanted to provide public comment during the registration, you will see your name on the list for the next slide. Once you see your name on the screen, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen, and the facilitator will open your microphone. If you are on the phone calling in, you can also raise your hand by pressing star and number 9. To mute and unmute your phone, you will press star and number 6. You will also see a 2-minute timer on the next slide, and this will display the amount of time you have for your public comment. We are reserving 2 minutes per public input. Your input will be included in the project public record. The BLM wants to hear from all members of the public. However, out of respect for everyone's participation and input, we do ask that you follow these guidelines. Please stay within your allotted time. On the slide, you will see the timer counting down. We ask that you watch this and be cognizant of the time to wrap up your comment. Please be respectful of others that are speaking. Please refrain from profanity. If these guidelines are not followed, your microphone will be muted and we will have to move on to the next person. We'd like to go ahead and get started. We had an individual request during the webinar registration to speak this evening, but I don't necessarily see that name in the chat or in the attendee list. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to speak today in this public input section? To speak tonight, please raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. We thank you for your time and participation tonight. The BLM will continue to be on this webinar until 8 p.m. If you would like to provide a public comment, you may raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. If you are on your phone, you can raise your hand by pressing star and number 9. If you have a question, you may type that into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be responded to within the Q&A box while we continue to allow for public comment and input. The slide on the screen now reminds everyone of the various ways that you can comment on this project. More information is available on the website. You also may provide comment via email, mail, or through e-planning. The comment period will close August 18th, 2023, and the BLM will be staying on this webinar through 8 p.m. If anyone would like to provide public input or add a question into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen.
Well, thank you for facilitating that, Donna and Jessica. I surely appreciate that presentation that you made, and for all the staff that are here tonight, ready and able to continue to address questions up until 8 o'clock tonight. So we'll be here And if you think of questions or like to put something, submit a comment, we'll be here until 8 o'clock. So I do appreciate those that did attend tonight. We will have public comment period open until August 18th. More information about the proposed project, as has been explained during the presentation, is available on the project website that you can see there on the e-planning website that is shown on the slide. Also on the slide, you can see the methods for submitting further comments after the meeting, either via email or mail. All of this information will also be placed in the chat. Thank you again, and please enjoy the rest of your evening or stay here with us until 8 o'clock. Thank you.